The scariest thing about The Conjuring is not the clapping hands or the possessed voice or the demon in the basement. The scariest thing is that millions of people walked out of theaters believing they had just watched something that was basically true. Not inspired by a rumor, not loosely based on folklore, but a real case, real people, real events. That belief is what makes this story uncomfortable, because once you slow it down and strip away the music, you're left with a system that feeds on fear while pretending to investigate it. This matters right now because The Conjuring didn't just become a movie, it became a franchise, a universe, a business built on the idea that evil can be documented, archived, and monetized. And the more seriously you take it, the less you ask a very simple question: what actually happened and who benefited from the version we were shown? The story begins in 1971 in Harrisville, Rhode Island, a quiet farmhouse. The Perron family moves in, excited, hopeful, unaware that the house already has a reputation. The movie tells us the house is cursed by a witch named Bathsheba, that she sacrificed her child, that she poisoned others, that her spirit still controls the land. It's clean, it's cinematic, it's terrifying. It's also where the exaggeration starts. In real life, the Perron family did experience strange things: doors opening, smells, noises, a sense of presence. That's not in dispute. Multiple family members later told similar stories. But here's the part that often gets skipped. None of these experiences were documented while they were happening. No police reports, no hospital records, no independent witnesses. Everything was written down years later, after the Warrens became involved. Ed and Lorraine Warren enter the story as paranormal investigators. In the film, they are calm professionals reluctantly battling evil. In reality, they were self-taught demonologists with no formal scientific training, operating in a time when paranormal investigation had no standards, no controls, no peer review. If something felt scary, it counted as evidence. This is where the system becomes important. The Warrens didn't just investigate hauntings, they built a narrative machine. A case wasn't valuable unless it escalated. Mild fear didn't sell books or lectures. A demon did. So every event needed interpretation, and every interpretation leaned toward the most extreme explanation available. Take Bathsheba. The movie presents her as a confirmed satanic witch. In real historical records, Bathsheba Sherman was a real woman who lived nearby, but there is no evidence she was a witch, no evidence she murdered children, and no evidence she cursed anything. The accusation comes from folklore layered on top of coincidence, repeated enough times to feel true. The Warrens conducted a séance in the Perron house. In the film, this is where everything explodes. Lorraine is attacked, the demon reveals itself. Chaos. In reality, the séance was chaotic too, but not because of supernatural proof. It was chaotic because séances are emotionally volatile by design. You place frightened people in a dark room, tell them they're in danger, and ask them to interpret sensations. The human brain does the rest. Here's the uncomfortable mechanism. Fear is contagious. Suggestion amplifies experience. Once one person reacts, others follow. The Perron family reported increased activity after the Warrens' visit, not before, which raises a quiet question. Did the investigation make the haunting worse, or did it make it feel more real? Eventually, the Warrens left. The Perrons stayed. No exorcism solved anything. No demon was banished. The family continued living there for years, and the activity gradually faded. Not dramatically, not with holy water, just slowly as fear lost its grip. But the story didn't end there, because the case had already been recorded, retold, and polished. Books were written, lectures were sold, artifacts were collected, including the infamous Annabelle doll, another case whose reputation grew far beyond its documented behavior. This is the irony. The movie frames the Warrens as reluctant heroes fighting darkness. In reality, darkness was their brand. The more terrifying the story, the more authority they gained. And authority makes stories harder to question. That doesn't mean nothing strange happened. It means strange experiences were filtered through belief, expectation, and incentive. Once a demon explanation enters the room, every creak becomes confirmation. Zoom out, and The Conjuring isn't just about a haunted house. It's about how humans create meaning under stress, how stories harden over time, how repetition replaces proof, and how fear becomes a business model that survives even when the original events fade into uncertainty. Today, the farmhouse still stands. People visit, they feel things, or think they do. Because by now, the story lives independently of reality. The house doesn't need to be haunted anymore. The idea does the work. So the question isn't whether The Conjuring is true or fake. That's too simple. The real question is this: if fear can be shaped, sold, and preserved this easily, how many other stories do we believe not because they happened, but because they were told well enough to feel real? And here's the part that never sits right. The Perron family eventually left the house. The Warrens moved on to new cases. The movie made millions. The story became permanent. But nothing ever happened that conclusively proved a demon was there, or that it wasn't. No final moment, no clean ending, just fragments, memories, and a narrative that outlived everyone involved. Which leaves us with an uncomfortable thought. If fear grows stronger the more attention it receives, then at what point does a haunting stop being something that happens to a house and start being something we build together, piece by piece, simply by believing it true? And if you had lived there, knowing everything you know now, would you trust your own experience? Or would you assume the story had already decided what you were supposed to feel?